Hello viewers, today in this episode we will discuss about realistic and stylized delivery of dialogues. Now let us see what is stylization in an actor or what is stylized acting. Unlike in folk and classical theatre, contemporary theatre has no specific style. It keeps shaping and reshaping and draws its inspiration from many styles. You could, for example, have a contemporary production in India with elements drawn from Japanese kabuki theatre. The same production can even have more than one style incorporated into it. Mixing of styles is a common feature of contemporary theatre. The flexibility can, however, turn into a disadvantage if stylization is not judiciously employed. Now let us see what is mixing of styles. For example, some people use the slow movements of the Yakshagana form in the fight scenes. Others use dance movements for playing gods and demons. People have used several styles. The styles are mime, Bharatnatyam, masks and narrators in contemporary theatre performances. Then there are actions or movements that we do not normally consider as stylization, like smoking a cigarette, drinking whiskey or talking over the phone. These are considered realistic actions. So, what exactly is stylization? To what extent can an actor use stylization? To what extent can actors mix the styles and how can they avoid wrong mixtures? How does a style evolve? Every art form is an expression of the community from within which the art form is shaped. Therefore, stylization evolves through a negotiation between the art form and the community. Stylization is Yakshagana, for example, is closely linked to the lifestyle of the people of the coastal Karnataka. Every motif, every gesture, every musical rendering of Yakshagana can be traced back to the environment and people of that region. Folk theatre in India has developed many distinctive styles, even as they have a common base in Indian theatre. In this sense, the development of different performative styles is not very different from the development of language in different parts of the world. Now let us see the style take root. How the style take the root? How does this negotiation take place? It takes place through an endless number of performances. What is shaped in a particular performance gets imprinted in the memory of the audience. Every time a high point is reached in the performance and appreciated by the audience, that particular effect is preserved, repeated, consolidated and improved upon, not necessarily by the same actor, not necessarily by the same audience even, but preserved all the same by the community. Now, all within a community. What is important to notice such situation is that the audience belongs to the same community and the actors belong to the same lineage of acting. It is in this sense that even actions like drinking, smoking and talking over the phone can become stylization, for these are also used, then reused and preserved by a community as styles. The Moscow Art Theatre, for example, declared its intention to develop realism on stage. And what they did, they achieved a realistic looking style of acting as opposed to, say, a theatrical looking style of acting. Now let us see the contemporary styles. In today's context of globalization, it looks as though communities are disappearing. This is true to some extent, but it is also true that new communities, thereto unknown, are emerging. In this sense, communities still exist, even if they may not have long gestation periods of development like earlier communities had. This is why contemporary art forms and contemporary styles do not possess such well-shaped and distinctive characters as do some of the older forms. In the world of fashion design, for example, the styling of clothes changes with every season, classical and modern. Take the case of European classical ballet. It was shaped consistently over a period of nearly 400 years. Compare this with modern dance. Modern dance has evolved over a much shorter period of few decades, and it is constantly changing. So, as a style, modern dance is not as distinctive as classical ballet. As a result, contemporary forms of theatre looks as though not as distinctive as classical ballet. As a result, contemporary forms of theatre looks as though they are free of stylization, whereas traditional theatre looks as though it is highly stylized. Now let us see the pure styles. For the same reason, highly evolved styles do not mix. Traditional styles, for example, look clumsy if you mix one with the other. Can you imagine what would happen if a Dhrupad singer suddenly introduced the Thumri style of singing in his or her performance? Or if a Kathakali dancer suddenly did a bit of Manipuri dance in the same number? Mixing of styles is considered permissible in contemporary art and in contemporary living. Mixing, or the great churning as we call it, is in fact a hallmark of contemporary society. What is a code mixing? In language, for example, this is happening every day. Here it is called code mixing. Take the sentence style. Take this sentence, style maar raha hai yaar. It is a code mixed sentence. That is, style is in English and the rest of the sentence is in Hindi. It is permitted. How much of mixing is permitted in contemporary theatre? Are there any rules governing this process? There are no rules. In contemporary expression, all that matters is truthfulness. If anything, what you are expressing should appear real and not faked. Let us take the example of the play Hamlet. In the last scene, where Hamlet dies, can one use the show play's Yakshagana style of swordplay? Hamlet fights fearlessly with Ophelia's brother in that scene and comes to his wounds. Hence, it is the intensity of the fight, its menacing quality and ferocity that matters the most. Can stylization achieve this purpose? This is the question that needs to be answered while deciding the style of sword fighting to be used in that scene. Speech. What is speech? At this stage, in training, a new variable gets added to the training process, namely language. Speech is inexorably linked with the language. Speech training is linked to an understanding of how language works, and through language another, even more difficult variables get added, that is, meaning. Yes, speech is not just a sound pattern, it is also a meaning pattern. With language, a host of other variables come into play in speech training, that is, diction, dialect, pronunciation, enunciation, etc. First is the recycling of the words. The most important aspect of theatre speech is that it recycles the words. The playwright selects words from the people and puts them down in writing. The written words are then handed over to theatre. Theatre cleans up these words, makes them shine, and puts them back into circulation once again as spoken words. Thus, words go through a continuous cyclical process of orality, formality, and again the orality. Theatre makes no distinction between words when picking them up from society. Good words, bad words, old words, new words, merry noises, merry exclamations, everything is brought in. Words used by the upper class, words from the rural, poor, words uttered by prostitutes, pimps, words of the Buddha, the Paramhans, all sorts of words. Theatre selects abusive words as lovingly as it picks up loving words. It chooses common proverbs as carefully as it does couplets in Sanskrit verse. All words are equal as far as theatre is concerned. The process of word selection in theatre is somewhat like rat picking. All the words that are picked are used words. They are second hand. They are found striven around at old places, shouted out, banded against, used, misused, and overused. Such words are brought back into circulation through theatre and dignity. Words in a play. These words are then woven into a lovely fabric in the shape of a play. The process of playwright lends a certain formal status to a words. A word from the street when it reaches Kalidas or Shakespeare is reborn. This is only half the process. Then actors take over. The cycle is completed by them. If nature converts dead wood and fallen leaves into nourishment for fresh wood and new leaves, theatre makes old and tired words young all over again. Through this cyclical process, the word not only gets reborn but often reaches beyond the little community in which it was born. A word spoken by a weaver, for example, suddenly finds itself being made available to a court poet. When Kabir, the saint poet, sang Jheeni Jheeni Bhini Chadariya, he elevated the status of the words Jheeni Jheeni, otherwise a merry sound made by the loom. Word makers. Actors are a part of this dynamic process. Speech making on stage, thus, is a larger social process and not merely entertainment. You contribute to the shaping of the language of your community, and stage actors have a role to play in this very important social process. What about cinema and television? Theoretically speaking, even cinema and television does this. But in the entertainment industry, the process gradually becomes one-way traffic. People start learning the language of the television serial rather than serials learning the language of the people. Language becomes generalized, homogenized, trite, and overused. Shakespeare as a serial writer. let me pose an imaginary question. What would have happened if Shakespeare or Kalidas or Valmiki had been writing scripts for television serials? After all, they were very popular writers. Would Shakespeare still have written those great plays? He would have written a very successful script to begin with, undoubtedly. Then, the serial writer in him would have taken over, and he would have got stuck in the mold of mass production. But why? Doesn't the cinema and television industry offer a much wider audience, much more money, much better technology, better actors, better singers, and whatnot? Yes, it does. And that is the problem. For the same reasons, it would be constantly reminding Shakespeare to mind his language, to become acceptable to the English, the Scottish, the Irish, the Punjabi, the Bengali, the Tamil, the Marathi, everybody alike. The film or the television producer would be reminding Shakespeare quite forcefully, under threat of withdrawal of contracts, that the cinema goers in South Africa and Northern Canada, possibly also in China and India, cannot understand his thou and thy, and that he should cut out phrases like ear kissing, arguments, thigh-asses are gone about them, etc. The cyclical process, the words and the phrases Shakespeare picked up were from his own community, and he gave back to them. They liked some, they did not like some. What they did not like, they threw back at him mercilessly. Shakespeare wrote, rewrote, enacted and reenacted words all in front of a close-knit audience. Shakespeare was shaped by the mob. So, to say, this is the way theatre speech is made. This is the way it should be made. At times, one may wonder why this elaborate cyclical process? Why waste so much efforts in recycling words of the mob? Well, the simple answer is, it is a very good way of shaping a language. So, what should be the quality of an actor's speech? You could say it should be like people speaking at a street corner. Good. But is that all? What are the other qualities that theatre speech should possess? Now, let us see the Shabgun in Sanskrit. Shab means both the sound of the word and the word itself, and Guna means quality. So, Shabgun means the quality of sound of the word. Drama and poetry both place great importance on the quality of the sound of a word. Thus, in classical Indian drama and also in Indian folk theatre, the poetic quality dominates over the dialogue quality. A dialogue in a classical Indian play, for example, should be rendered such that the words sound good both in intonation and in the meaning. Ideally, even in contemporary drama, this should be the case even if the play is not written in verse form. Poetry and speech. In contemporary drama, though, this quality seems to have receded a bit. Speech in contemporary theatre often becomes mere conversation. Hence, it is all the more necessary that a contemporary actor understands the importance of Shabgun. Actors should work with poetic text as an exercise in speech. Regular poetry reading and recitation are a great help in speech training. Working with poetry has the same impact in speech training as working with the music in voice training. Poetry uses language very differently from prose. It tries to bring out all the aspects of language and not merely the meaning aspect. Now, what is the rhyming patterns? What does that mean? Every language has its own distinctive rhyming pattern. Traditional poets understand this and went along that pattern. Each poet then developed his or her own rhyming pattern, distinct from the larger language pattern. We often disregard this basic pattern and become insensitive to the natural rhyme of the language. So remember, you should not only see the meaning in a word, but also hear the sound of the word. Now, what is tinkering with the words? Next comes the wonderful task of tinkering with the words. Poets often do this. They join the words, break them, stretch the sound, and use the elasticity of the sound. They do all this to get the rhyming right. This technique is important for actors as well. Actors cannot change words, but they can tinker with given word in order to make it fit well on their tongue. Tinkering becomes necessary even in a well-written play. This is because spoken words have to be far more elastic than the written words. Half a syllable here, half a syllable there. Yes, it is half a syllable here and half a syllable there that you need in order to fit the words well on the tongue. Do this job during the initial reading. You can combine two words or break the word into two and do such other things without affecting the essential meaning of the word. Seeing and hearing. To act and to say, actors tend to treat these two activities as separate. They even think that the first activity originates in the heart and the second in the brain. That is not correct. As we have already discussed, that you should place the spoken word on the top of the gesture. The two should eventually merge one into the other. They should merge so well that the audience should feel that they are hearing the expression and seeing the speech. That is the principle. Sounding language. How is language shaped? In a sense, every word is born out of a primordial inarticulate cry for some point in past. An aboriginal may have cried out something, or a pregnant woman may have uttered a cry while delivering her baby. All these continue to the formation of words. Consider, for example, the words such as cut, put, pump, go, sit. You could call them primary words. Take the word cut. Observe the sound produced by this word. Now, utter the word again and again. You will realize that the sound of the word cut actually cuts the word. The T at the end of the word makes a sharp cutting sound, doesn't it? Thus, there is a link between the act of cutting and the word used to indicate the cut. Mother's trick. Take the word piss as another example. Say it with a couple of extras s added to it, like piss. You will realize that it actually makes the sound of peeing. Word like oh, oh, ouch are of course only exclamatory expressions, compound words. But the same cannot be said about compound words or combination words. Compound words become more complicated until they lose the contact with their original sound and meaning. Now, how to read? While discussing the method to be used during initial reading of a play, reading should be done unemotionally. What does this mean? It simply means that you should understand the hidden emotion first. Where is the emotion hidden? It is hidden in the language itself. In any language, the emotion is expressed in the way the words in sentences are arranged. Many actors wrongly think that it is their job to provide expressions and emotion from outside. Such an understanding presupposes that the text lacks emotion. In a well-written play, there is no need to put in anything additional. Grammar and dialogue. Let us move a little further and talk about the role of grammar in speech. In any dialogue, grammar operates in a limited sense. One hardly speaks full sentence and get on with the communication. Quite often, we use half sentences and get on with the communication. Unfortunately, we often read a play like we read a novel, or still worse, like we read the newspaper. If our problem is with understanding English, as is the case with a lot of us Indians, then we should read good passages from our own language. We will then understand the relationship between sound and meaning better. Nothing irrelevant. In this sense, dramatic action is an effort to pull the hidden emotions out of the written word. Hence, nothing irrelevant should happen on stage. No car chase, no helicopter ride, and no under-physicality. If you have a fight scene, use words to fight with. If you have a love scene, make love with the words. This is the dictum. Even the material used on the stage is used only to materialize the words. Theatre, unlike cinema, is words. Getting back to practicing speech with poetry. Now, while concluding, we should always keep these things in our mind. That is, keep the meaning aside, catch the rhythm first, do not read silently, reread, do not be in hurry to read too many poems. Speech is a vast subject, and it is how we use it and practice it. Thank you. Have a nice day.